Chaos Uncontrolled, Chapter 11, Smile for the Camera. Scarlet had many questions for the doubles, and her mind was buzzing with excitement. They all seemed very nervous about her, and out of respect, she hadn't brought the cameras up yet. She would have to gain their trust first. Looking at each of them, Scarlet couldn't pick out who would be the easiest to reassure. Sonic was tapping his fingers together and was practically bouncing out of his seat. The constant hyperactivity she was seeing was quite the contrast from the Sonic she already knew. The Sonic she already knew was perfectly content to sleep on the roof and stay still, as long as he could run if he wanted to. But this new one looked like staying still for even a minute would be a huge challenge for him. Tails had an anxious expression on his face and was holding a device tightly in his hand, and his gaze kept looking around the cameras. The little fops appeared to be analyzing each of them carefully. What was he worried about? The Tails she knew was smart and analytical, so this one was probably similar and had come up with something. But the exact reason for his concern was currently unknown to her. Knuckles sat still and tense, like he was ready to spring up and attack at any moment. His gaze was locked onto her, and Scarlet had a good feeling that if he deemed her a threat, he would not hesitate to attack her. So she just had to be friendly and non-threatening.
Hello, my name is Scarlett Garcia. I'm a reporter and I was wondering if I could ask you some questions.
What kind of questions?
Little Tails tilted his head and narrowed his eyes. He had a slightly different voice and spoke quite similarly to the one she knew, but it was hard to tell from just one sentence.
Well, for a start, who are you? The three of you look just like Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. Are you clones, robots from another universe, or something else?
Newer Tails pulled the other two close and started to whisper to them while pointing at the cameras. Was Little Tails scared of being found by someone or something?
Oh, they're not recording.
Little Tails still appeared nervous, but the trio nodded at each other.
Yep, we're Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles from a different universe. I know, it's totally mind-blowing.
Newer Sonic sounded like a kid, an actual kid. Were all of them younger or something? They were smaller and fluffier, even with the mud caking their fur.
Amazing. Two Sonic the Hedgehogs? Fans all over are going to go wild over this.
Something about what she said seemed to slightly offend Newer Sonic.
Okay, first of all, it's Sonic Wachowski. The Hedgehog is only part of the name when I'm in trouble.
Wachowski? That was a shockingly human-sounding name. Most of Sonic's friends just used their species in place of last name, with two exceptions being Amy Rose and Tails' actual, but rarely used name of miles per hour. But Wachowski sounded like it belonged to someone she could meet on Earth.
And secondly, don't forget about my brothers. They're awesome too.
His brothers? Did he mean Tails and Knuckles? She was pretty sure that wasn't the case with the familiar versions as far as she knew.
Yep, those three are brothers. We're just as surprised as you are.
Then I assume you are Tails Wachowski and Knuckles Wachowski.
New Knuckles gave a small nod.
Yep, you got it.
Newer Tails' namesakes twitched and he had a happy expression as he got squished into the middle of a hug.
You three must have had very different pasts to end up as brothers.
That appears to be so. While we have not heard their story, but we know their past is very different from our own.
Newer Knuckles spoke far more formally than she was expecting, and in an entirely different accent too. It was a far contrast from the familiar Knuckles, who could be rather rude and blunt at times.
Would you mind saying a few words on that during the interview?
We literally just told our story to these guys and it was pretty difficult. So maybe not.
Sonic rubbed the back of his neck quickly.
We do not wish to repeat our tale at this time. It is long and begins with tragedy. Telling our counterpart required a great deal of trust. We will not tell it to strangers we cannot see.
Looks like the most interesting part of this will be off limits.
Alright, if you really don't want to, I understand.
Thank you.
Alright now, I have one more thing to ask you before we begin the interview properly. Apparently one of the Sonics was seen at the origin of the lightning blast. Are you able to comment on that?
The trio pulled each other into a huddle again to whisper something to each other.
It's probably not smart to tell everyone about what happened.
The lightning and subsequent blackout was a massive citywide event. Without answers to their questions, the public are going to start coming up with their own theories, and they might come after Sonic.
Scarlet couldn't be completely sure yet, but she was pretty sure her prediction was accurate.
No, there's no way we're letting everyone know that they were involved.
Familiar Knuckles just confirmed her suspicion.
So he was the cause?
Oh darn it.
I don't understand. Why do you not want to tell people about these three's involvement?
These three aren't like anything you've ever seen from us so far. It might be dangerous for some things to become common knowledge.
Scarlet searched the familiar Echidna's face. He did take pretty much everything seriously. Was it really this big of a deal?
I think we should go with Mr. Knuckles on this one. We do not want Dr. Eggman to know much about them. And even if Gunn has no intention to take them away, some people may fear them and demand action.
Mr. Chnaka stepped forwards, and most people voiced some level of agreement. Scarlet could understand their hesitance now. Gunn did attempt to bring Sonic and his friends into custody when they first arrived here, and Gunn's history wasn't exactly clean in this world. Perhaps in their similar or maybe even worse things had happened. But one thing was still bothering her. Everyone was so insistent that they were dangerous. Well, newer Sonic did cause the blackout, but what else could the trio do to garner such a reaction?
Don't worry. If we begin the interview with me, I can explain that the lightning was a result from them being transported here, and it's not something the public needs to be concerned about.
Scarlet nodded and signaled for her team to start setting up the cameras.
So, this means we can be seen by everyone on live TV and not be in danger?
Excitement began to creep into newer Sonic's expression.
I'm always ending up on live TV and I'm fine.
Familiar Sonic shrugged. He wasn't really bothered by the fame or public opinion. He just did what he thought was right.
Oh my gosh, this could be my chance. I could finally achieve one of my dreams.
Newer Sonic excitedly shook his tail's arm.
I'm going to be on live TV and everyone's going to see me.
The young hedgehog's eyes were shining with excitement. Scarlet couldn't help but smile at him. She'd experienced many kids try to get on TV by trying to get in the background of one of her news reports, and this Sonic seemed just like them. While the newer Tails and Knuckles didn't look as enthused as their brother, they did look more relaxed.
So, what will you be asking us?
We're just going to ask some questions to get to know you better, like what your favorite color is, for example.
I do not see what color I like is significant.
I gotta agree with the other me. I never get why people ask questions like that.
It's just small talk, Knuckles. A jumping off point for a bigger conversation.
Familiar Knuckles looked at Amy with a puzzled expression before shaking his head and muttering under his breath.
Miss Garcia, we're ready to go.
Wonderful.
Scarlet brushed herself off and everyone shuffled around the room to prepare for the interview. Vector looked over all the damage of the street. It was a familiar sight. He had seen the aftermath of plenty of Eggman battles, and this was a perfect example of one. The scorch marks, the rubble, the senseless destruction. Whatever bot had done this had already fled the scene and left no identifying features behind.
See anything that proves you're Eggman's here?
Tom and Maddie looked back and forth.
Aside from an entry street being destroyed, no. But I suppose that's standard for yours too, right?
So, all we've got to go on is that guy's story.
Vector concentrated and went over what he knew. Both Sonics, his world's Tails, Amy, Cream, and Eggman were all definitely here. His boys, both Knuckles, Tom, and Maddie's Tails, and possibly their Eggman were probably all here too, despite it not being confirmed. The moon had one of its sides made out of mechanical parts. Probably Eggman's fault. And the world was mostly populated by humans.
Wait, listen.
Vanilla had lifted one of her ears and was pointing to where it sounded like a struggle was happening. A silent look passed between the group, and each got their weapons or fists in Vector's case, ready to fight.
He's going to escape you now.
Then help me.
No way, I don't want to get hit in the face.
Vector knew those voices. It was Espio and Charmy. Vector dropped his fighting stance and ran towards them. When rounding the corner, he found Espio struggling to keep Bokun in his arms, while Charmy flew around his head, adding unhelpful comments. At the sight of them, Vector couldn't wipe the grin off his face.
Boys!
All three of them paused and turned to Vector.
Vector!
Charmy instantly flew over and lashed himself around Vector's neck.
Good to see you, boss.
Espio walked over calmly and fondly smiled at him, with Bokun gripped tightly in his arms.
Oh yeah, Team Chaotix is back together!
Charmy pumped his fist with a cheer. Meanwhile, Tom and Maddie were giving Bokun a confused look, both trying to work out what he was.
Hey! What you staring at?
The two humans jumped back at the loud, shrill voice, the confusion increasing as they failed to figure out what he was.
Why do you have Falcon?
We infiltrated an Eggman base, and didn't want him to alert Dr. Eggman of our presence too soon.
Espio spoke calmly despite him struggling to keep Bokun's tangle of limbs under control.
I suppose he didn't get spotted.
No, and we even messed with his equipment too.
Charmy had a very proud expression on his face.
Nice one, boys.
So boss, what should we do about him?
The group looked down at Bokun.
Well, you could just keep him.
Vanilla teased with a small smile on her face.
No!
All of Team Chaotix leaped back, and Bokun took this as his opportunity to escape.
You jerks! Wait till I tell Dr. Eggman about this, then you'll be sorry!
Bokun laughed as he flew off into the sky.
Should we be concerned about that?
Tom said as he watched Bokun leave with an apprehensive expression.
We messed a lot of things in Eggman's base. He's gonna have a lot to deal with.
Charmy's smug expression was slightly concerning, but the group took that to mean that they were in the clear to head to the Thorndyke mansion. Eggman had to admit the egg drones had done a solid job. They were efficient and did their job well. Once they started to get damaged, Eggman recalled them. He didn't want to risk the government getting their hands on their design. Seeing them in battle, Eggman could see that they would do better in large, overwhelming numbers or as searchers. Yes, he would definitely be putting resources into making more of these. His own bot's performance was something to be desired. The thing had barely had a chance to cause destruction when Vector, Vanilla, and two humans he didn't recognize had defeated it with quick efficiency. Eggman had to admit, whoever made the gadgets they used was skilled. He was especially impressed by the gravity pulse. Eggman would love to have a chat with its inventor.
Dr. Eggman?
What do you nincompops want?
The rest of the city has power back.
And Scarlet Garcia is doing a news broadcast about it.
The blackout was caused by chaos energy. It would be stupid for Eggman to pass up an opportunity to gain more information about its cause.
Put it on!
Yes, Doctor.
Deco tapped a few buttons on a keyboard, and the screen in front of Eggman flicked to life. The broadcast hadn't actually started yet, and the news channel was instead showing a screen with the text, "Important update incoming, please stand by." Eggman tapped his fingers while waiting for the broadcast to start. After the blackout, he had detected 3 chaos energy signatures, and one of them had lined up with exactly the other Knuckles was positioned. At first, Eggman had suspected he had a Chaos Emerald with him or something, but the Echidna have literally lit up with Chaos Energy when angered. So Eggman could deduct that the blue lightning was from the other Sonic. That was a frightening thought. The other Sonic had just shut down the entire city with Chaos Energy, including Eggman's base. He would have to deal with the other Sonic first if he wanted to keep his machines running. Some of them had already malfunctioned since he got them working again. Although Eggman did suspect foul play, he just didn't know who did it. They had hid their identity by choosing the security system as their main target. A melodic chime sounded and the screen switched to a close-up of Scarlett Garcia.
Good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to this important update. A sense of normalcy is being restored after last night's mysterious blackout, with power being restored over most of the city. I'm here at the Thorndike Mansion with Professor Chuck Thorndike, who will be answering some questions about the recent events.
Chuck Thorndike walked into view and Scarlett pointed the microphone at him.
Thank you, Miss Garcia. I would like to first reassure everyone that the situation is under control and there is no further danger.
Now, Professor, can you please explain the cause of this event?
Of course. I'm sure everyone is aware that Sonic and his friends came here from their world when Eggman activated Chaos Control.
That wasn't quite accurate. While Eggman was just as happy to take over this world, coming here was never part of his original plan, and was in fact Sonic's actions that had caused Chaos Control.
Last night, a similar event occurred.
Okay, Eggman did have to admit some part in this occurrence of Chaos Control, but yet again, Bo-kun had ruined his plans and made everything worse.
And that event caused another version of Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails to be brought into this world.
The camera panned away from the professor and to the couch where the other versions were sitting. Nothing in particular stood out. They looked the same, but with a few changes. But that was to be expected. Eggman had to wonder why they were muddy, though.
These alternate versions aren't a perfect parallel, and in fact have very different histories to the versions we know. In a surprising turn of events, these three are brothers who share the last name of Wachowski.
Eggman's eyebrows raised. He already knew from when the other Knuckles had done the whole glowing thing that they were brothers, but them sharing a last name was a surprise.
Now, some of you might be wondering, how will you know which one you're talking about when they share the same name?
Little Sonic excitedly grabbed the microphone from Scarlett and began to ramble into it.
Oh, I can answer this one. It's simple. Me and my brothers are called Little, while my counterparts are called Tall.
Oh, come on! Tell me something useful!
Scarlett took the microphone back from him.
Well, now that we have that out of the way, why don't you tell us about your world?
Eggman perked up. From what he could tell from his encounter with Little Knuckles, travel between planets was a normal thing, and he had also visited Earth at some point. Little Tails leaned over and Scarlett pointed the mic in his direction.
We're currently living on our world's version of Earth in a small town with our parents and dog.
They had parents? And they lived on Earth in a town? Did Little Knuckles not live on Angel Island? What about the Master Emerald? He doubted he was going to get answers. They probably wouldn't be telling this information to just anyone.
Does that mean in your world humans and anthropomorphic animals are living together?
No, it's just us. Earth is isolated from the rest of the galaxy. We chose to live there instead of our original planet.
Yeah, aliens are very real in our world, and it's us.
Little Sonic pointed towards himself with a dramatic pose.
Are there other kinds of aliens?
Of course, there are plenty of different species living across the galaxy, but none look like the green creatures shown in your movies.
Eggman didn't think that the information would be helpful, but it was certainly interesting. He was pretty certain that his own world had civilizations beyond the stars, but if any had visited recently, they hadn't made a big scene. Little Tails added more to what Little Knuckles said.
Yeah, for example, there's the Cedrians, an evolved race of plants that were on a planet near my solar system. I actually got to meet some of them when a group of them took some of their children on an adventure.
Eggman tapped his finger on his arm. Sentient plants forming a society. Their universe got stranger the more he heard about them. Unless, did Cedrians exist in his home world too? But what of this one? It was parallel to the one Sonic had come from. But how far across the universe did that extend? Eggman shook his head. If he got too caught up in his thoughts, he'd miss something important.
There is also the hive mind species, the black arms, and it is best to avoid them.
Had Eggman heard of them before? He thought back to his grandfather's notes. Yes, he had. They had a brief mention in Gerald's notes for Project Shadow. They weren't from Earth's universe, but the same one as Sonic, although it talked about specimens being rare due to an attack from a strange robotic army years ago.
I never really met any other aliens, but I knew there's these scavenger dudes that travel around and don't really live anywhere.
Little Sonic shrugged, but his brothers nodded to confirm the accuracy of what he said.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating. But back onto you three. You said you lived on Earth with your parents. What about your Dr. Eggman? Do you have a version of him in your world?
Immediately, the trio became more serious.
Our Eggman did a lot of bad things, but he's gone now and shouldn't bother us anymore.
Both Eggman later, and the room was silent after Little Sonic spoke, and the implications sunk in. As far as these other versions knew, the other Eggman was out of commission in some way. His friend was supposedly connected to the other him in some way. Now Eggman was even more suspicious of them.
Alright. Well then, what's something you three spend your days doing?
The trio relaxed and Little Sonic smiled again.
Oh well, some days we go on adventures all over Green Hills. We help out the town and some days we go to school. Not all days though. We're still kinda in a weird transition phase. We're not exactly used to human schools, so we're doing things a little different to normal.
The room of the intro for you expressed their surprise. The other him and this friend were going after what was very clearly a group of children. How severe were these fights? Little Knuckles had proven to be pretty powerful. That was probably part of the other him's motivation. The level of chaos energy was truly something to behold. Eggman wanted some of it. Surely there was a way to get it, some of it, without being too cruel to the kid.
These adventures of yours, I assume you get covered in mud regularly?
Yeah.
It's a common occurrence.
May I ask why you're covered in it today?
His fault.
Little Sonic did not look sorry at all as his brothers pointed at him.
If one of us gets muddy, all of us gets muddy. Wachowski brothers law.
I shall keep that in mind next time I am muddy.
Little Knuckles narrowed his eyes, and Little Sonic looked a tiny bit regretful, but kept the smug expression. Little Tails turned to the camera.
Nux is 100% serious about that. He will not be forgetting.
Eggman grimaced and let the interview fade into the background as it switched to less important questions. He didn't care about their favorite colors or cartoons, movies, food. He didn't care that the trio's prank wars would escalate to ridiculous extremes. It was also mundane. They were living peaceful lives. Well, as peaceful as they could when they were powerful children living in an unfamiliar planet. Eggman let the interview play in the background, just in case something relevant would come up. He had more important things to do, like working on his plans for world domination. Tom, Maddie, Vanilla, and Team Chaotic stood at the entrance to a massive house. Maddie rolled her shoulder that had the tote bag with the Master Emerald in it.
I guess this is the place.
Maddie took a breath and knocked. It took a few seconds, but a sharply dressed man appeared to the door.
Can I help you?
Hi, is this the Thorndyke Mansion?
Yes, it is.
The man's gaze lingered on Tom and Maddie before flicking over to Vanilla.
Pardon me if I'm assuming, but are you the mother of a young lady by the name of Green?
Yes, that's my daughter. Is she here?
The man nodded once before turning back into the room and calling into it.
Miss Cream, there is someone here to see you.
There were light footsteps, and then a little rabbit girl squeezed herself past the man. Once she caught sight of Vanilla, she ran to Vanilla and dropped the metal pole and scooped her up into a hug. Those who witnessed the scene felt their hearts warm at the beautiful reunion. The man turned back to Tom and Maddie.
May I ask who you two are?
I'm Tom and this is my wife Maddie.
Tom paused for a second to think. This man knew about Cream and was in the photo they saw, so it should be safe to ask him.
Do you happen to know about another version of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles?
You are Tom and Maddie Wachowski, yes?
They nodded.
Ah, I see. You are their parents.
Yes, we are.
This is wonderful news. Right this way.
Tom and Maddie looked back at Team Chaotix and the two rabbits.
go on. We'll see ya in a minute.
The man introduced himself as Mr. Chonka, and he led them to what appeared to be a lounge room where a news crew was packing up. There were other people in the room, but the two of them were laser focused on their three kids, sitting on a towel on one of the couches, with dry mud blotches all over their fur. They would have expected nothing less from the low, troublesome trio. Sonic was the first to spot them.
Mom! Dad!
The little hedgehog launched himself off of the couch and into their arms, with their other two kids following seconds after. All five of them had tears of joy in their eyes, and none of them wanted to let go of each other. Maddie ran a hand along each of their heads, comfortingly, and they pressed themselves further into the hug.
Mother, Father, we're so happy you have found us.
Us too, Red.
The Wachowskis kept a hold of each other for a few more minutes before feeling comfortable letting go.
Mom, Dad, look! There are other us's here!
Tails pulled their arms and pointed to the rest of the room. The camera crew in one of the far corners had paused in the middle of packing up to watch the scene, and a few humans they recognized from the magazine earlier were watching, silently. And scattered around the room were the alternate versions of their kids, as well as the pink hedgehog that had been a part of all the photos. Maddie believed her name was Amy.
Oh yeah, to tell each other apart when addressing one, we are called small and they are called tall.
Tom walked over to the alternate version of Sonic. He was reclining on the windowsill, with his eyes casually watching the room. If only his version of Sonic would sit that still like this. It was not an ability he appeared to possess.
Oh, you're other me's dad, huh?
It was very weird to Tom to talk to someone who looked so much like Sonic, yet acted so different.
Yep, I do my best to look after him, give him a good place to grow up.
Tall Sonic shrugged.
I don't need anything like that. But if that's the life our other me wants, I don't get it though. To me, home's wherever place I'm free to run.
What happens if you get hurt?
Tall Sonic looked at his counterpart.
Well, my friends are often around if I need them.
Tom found it very interesting how his Sonic had such a strong sense of home, and how important Green Hills was as a place and its community was to him. While this other Sonic was more of a wanderer and a traveler. Maddie reached into the tote bag around her shoulders and pulled out the Master Emerald and handed it to Knuckles. Immediately, the echidna latched onto it and pulled it close to his chest.
Thank you, Mother. It's a relief to know the Master Emerald is safe.
What? You mean to tell me that is the Master Emerald?
Yes, this is the Master Emerald.
Little Knuckles shifted his hands so the older counterpart could see it better. Tall Knuckles stared at the Master Emerald and with a befuddled expression. He reached towards it slightly but didn't touch it. He let out a heavy sigh.
If I keep questioning your world, I'm going to get a headache.
Little Tails turned to his parents to provide an explanation.
It turns out our worlds have a lot of differences, and it's kind of stressing the other Knuckles out.
Tom and Maddie looked at the alternate version of their eldest son. He did look very frustrated.
Those three go against basically everything about how chaos energy works in our world.
Tall Knuckles swapped down onto one of the seats, and it became very apparent that the room was very crowded.
Oh my, there's so many of us now.
Ella did a quick count of those in the room, and the group still at the front door.
It's going to take a lot of time to cook up dinner for all of us.
Oh no, we don't want to intrude.
Maddie tried to politely decline, but Ella smiled warmly at her.
Nonsense. By the sounds of it, your boys didn't have dinner last night. I simply have to remedy that.
Little Sonic jumped in before Ella could continue.
Thank you for offering, but we really just want to go home.
How? You're stuck here just like us.
Nope, because we got warp rings.
Little Sonic reached into his quills and pulled out 2 small golden rings.
These rings look quite similar to the ones Tall Sonic uses to boost his power.
Chuck looked at the ring in curiosity, and the little hedgehog handed one over to the professor. He held it up to the light and turned it over in his hands a few times before handing it back.
How do they work?
It's really easy. All you gotta do is picture where you want to go and then throw the ring, like this.
Little Sonic tossed one of the rings behind him, and a tink sound followed a few seconds later.
Huh?
Little Sonic picked up the ring and looked at it with a puzzled expression. He tossed the ring again. Nothing happened. Little Sonic's breath quickened slightly. He tossed the other one. Nothing happened.
They're not working?
Maddie questioned as she picked up the thrown rings. Tom noticed that his hedgehog son was beginning to panic and crouched down next to him to provide comfort.
Dad, do you have any spare rings?
Little Sonic looked up at his dad and leaned into his side.
Hold on, let me check.
While Tom opened his wallet to check, Little Tails looked through his backpack.
Maybe that's not the problem.
Maddie peered out the window and threw a ring. A golden portal of light opened, revealing the garden outside. An identical one could be seen through the window. Collective gasps could be heard from everyone who had never seen a warp ring active.
It's beautiful.
Amy reached out in awe towards it.
They're perfectly safe. You can touch it.
Little Tails had finished looking through his backpack and had zipped it up. The group unfamiliar with the warp ring all got up and stood close to it. Some circled around it, and a few apprehensively stepped through and back. Tall Sonic stepped back and forth multiple times through the ring.
Say, these rings are pretty cool. How many you got?
The Wachowski family had checked, and between them, they had 5. A noise got everyone's attention, and the large gold ring disappeared, leaving Chuck outside. The man was unbothered and simply climbed through the window.
Yeah, they don't last that long, but anyway, how are we going to get home now? No offense, but I don't want to be stuck here forever.
Don't worry, Sonic. Just because the warp rings didn't work doesn't mean we're stuck here forever. We still don't know what sent us here in the first place.
Little Tails tapped his chin thoughtfully and added some notes to his Miles Electric.
For us, it was the Chaos Emeralds.
Taller Tails started to run through possibilities in his head.
Whatever brought us here, I'm sure there's a way to reverse it. Our tribe is strong and we will return home.
Lil Knuckles' 2 younger brothers nodded in agreement.
Yeah, and now that we're all together, oh my gosh, I just remember Ozzy. If we're stuck here, what's going to happen to him?
Little Sonic gripped the sides of his head in a panic.
Baby, relax. He's at the clinic, remember? He got that bee sting on his foot, and we wanted to make sure he stayed off it for a few days.
Oh yeah.
Little Sonic breathed a sigh of relief.
Our canine companion will be well cared for during our absence.
Well, if you are stuck here for now, you might as well stay here.
Mr. Tanaka extended the offer to Team Chaotix as well.
Are you sure?
Of course, this is a mansion after all. We have plenty of rooms.
We wouldn't want to intrude.
Don't worry, we've already been dealing with this lot. We'll be happy to have you.
The Wachowskis looked anxious but accepted the offer. The evening was starting to approach and they didn't really have any other options.
So you'll be staying for dinner after all then?
Ella clasped her hands together and excused herself from the room. Vanilla Cream, Amy, and Mr. Tanaka followed her into the kitchen. Team Chaotix attempted to follow, but Vanilla stopped Vector and Termy, claiming that she knew how messy cooks they were, especially when together. Espio, however, was allowed into the kitchen. He was supposedly quite skilled with a knife and could make delicate and precise cuts.
Well, I think that's my cue to leave.
Sam swung himself out of his seat and stretched out.
But Uncle Sam, aren't you going to stay for dinner?
Chris looked up at his uncle and the man responded by apologetically rubbing the back of his neck.
Sorry, Chris, I gotta get my car back to the base. I've already been here for a while. Besides, you know me, I prefer a quick meal.
Chris looked disappointed that he wasn't staying, but still waved goodbye as the man left.
Well, it sounds like you're settling down for the evening. We'll take our leaves too.
Scarlett shook hands with Chuck and thanked him for allowing her to interview them. She briefly introduced herself to Tom and Maddie before leaving. With the NIS crew gone and a few people in the kitchen, the room didn't feel as crowded. The Wachowskis stayed close together on one couch with the 3 kids sat between their 2 parents. Their counterparts watched this interaction with a mix of emotions. It was so strange to see how close they were. Little Knuckles tapped Maddie's arm, called her mother, and asked her if they could play a game of baseball once they returned home. He was quickly joined by his brothers, who were just as enthusiastic about the idea.
I'll have you know I'm quite a fan of baseball.
The 3 boys turned to Chuck with interested looks.
Now you've got their interest.
Tom smiled hearing that the boys could connect with someone in this world over something they loved.
And once we played against Eggman for 2 Chaos Emeralds.
Did you win?
Little Tail's eyes were shining in curiosity.
Almost, but old Egghead cheated. He attacked me at the robot and escaped with his Chaos Emerald. We never actually finished the game.
Yeah, and who said that it was a bad idea? Me. And who saved you from that bot? Oh yeah, me again.
Tall Knuckles crossed his arms and gave Tall Sonic an annoyed look, who simply shrugged in response.
Yeah, but you gotta admit, you were having fun.
Tall Sonic had a small smirk on his face, remembering seeing Knuckles enjoy himself during the game. Tall Knuckles huffed.
Yeah, whatever. If it wasn't against Eggman and we weren't risking a Chaos Emerald, it would have been a blast.
The Wachowski looked between each other and nodded.
Then we challenge you to a game.
Tall Knuckles raised an eyebrow at his smaller counterpart.
There's less of you. You sure you can beat us?
We are a greatly skilled team. I believe we can.
Grandpa, this sounds like an awesome idea. Can we do it?
Well, we'll need to see if we're able to reserve the Diamond Stadium for a game. And with a matchup this interesting, we'll no doubt get it.
Alright, Wachowski versus Thorndyke, a matchup that spans dimensions.
Tall Knuckles opened his mouth to interrupt Little Sonic and remind him that he wasn't the Thorndyke, but was cut off by the Little Hedgehog's continued dramatics. Chuck left the room to make the call, and once Little Sonic settled the conversation, eventually drifted to Chris's family. They were often not around and left Chris under the care of Chuck, Mr. Tanaka, and Ella most of the time. Vector wanted to meet and talk with his parents. By the sounds of it, they loved him, but they were very out of touch. Poor kid missed them often. The Wachowski brothers could sympathize with that feeling of loneliness. During the conversation, Taller Knuckles was noticeably antsy. He told them that the unusually high levels of chaos energy was messing with his senses. The other Master Emerald was also messing with him in more ways than one. Firstly, its smaller size was something he would have to get used to, and the simple fact that it was here was giving him a headache. It was the Master Emerald and felt like the Master Emerald, but it was wrong. He felt a vague connection to it, but not a full one. The older Echidna had to get up and stepped outside, and he really needed a break while he got used to the fact that there was a whole nother Master Emerald here that was so different and yet so similar to his own.